Right. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Um, again. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Nirush Kwanik. I'm the Executive Director for the American Chamber of Commerce in Rwanda. Before we begin, I'd like to give you a quick overview of today's event and a few housekeeping details. Our program will run for 1 hour and 30 minutes, featuring an expert presentation, followed by an experienced panel and an interactive Q&A session. For the questions, please post your questions in the Q&A box as the session progresses, rather than in the chat box. It makes it easier for us to capture all your questions. Okay. Today I have the privilege of speaking on behalf of the Council of East African AmChams, representing Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Ethiopia, and of course, Rwanda. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you attending our virtual forum, Doing Business with the U.S., series Unlocking East Africa's Export Potential to the U.S. I also wish to express sincere gratitude to the U.S. Africa Trade Desk expert who will talk later and share his expertise with us. In Africa, SMEs play a crucial role in economic contribution and job creation, representing approximately 90% of businesses, 65% of formal jobs, and 40% of GDP contribution. According to the World Bank and the International Finance Corporation, these SMEs are pivotal to the boosting trade and investment between the US and East Africa. International trade has traditionally been viewed as benefiting large companies. However, recent research suggests significant gains from SMEs engaging with international trade, emphasizing the importance of learning by exporting. Despite these crucial roles, East African SMEs have not fully leveraged the opportunities to participate in international trades, such as the African Growth and Opportunity Trade AGOA. In 2023, U.S. imports of AGOA products reached a record high, primarily driven by the textile industry. However, these figures started to decline and other sectors have consistently remained low. As AGOA nears its end of negotiation, beginning on its successor, questions arise about how SMEs can be best utilized such programs to engage in trade with the US. Addressing such gaps as financing, capacity, knowledge, and know-how is essential. This forum aims to address the challenges of information. Its purpose is to sensitize and equip East African SMEs with the crucial information to enhance their capacity to leverage businesses opportunities across various sectors in the US. Participants will be introduced to various aspects of trade between Kenya and the US, including opportunities with the AGOA and available US and EAC support through agencies mandated to support bilateral trade between the EAC and the US. Thank you all for joining us. We look forward to a productive and enlightening discussion that will pave the way for the strong trade relations and economic growth between East Africa and the United States. Now, let me take this time to introduce Gavin Venberg from the U.S. Africa Trade Desk. Gavin is an accomplished entrepreneur from South Africa, currently living in the U.S. with a solid academic foundation in entrepreneurship from the University of Johannesburg. Gavin has significantly transformed his business by enhancing African products, making them available in over 6,500 stores across the US. In 2023, he furthered his expertise by completing an advanced course in marketing and artificial intelligence at the University of Columbia in New York. As a founder of the US African Trade Desk, Gavin has developed an innovative platform that ensures comprehensive supply chain visibility and upholds high sustainability and ethics standards. Recognized in the 2024 edition of Marcus Who's Who of America, Gavin's contributions to the transcontinental trade and economic development are noteworthy, bridging continents and introducing high-quality African goods to the global market. Welcome, Gavin. I hand it off to you.
Thank you very much for the warm introduction. Greatly appreciate it. And good morning, everyone. As introduced, my name is Gavin van der Berg. I represent the US Africa Trade Desk, and I'm going to be walking you through a brief presentation on who USATD is, and how you can join the network, be part of the network, use our assistance to navigate your products into the US market. So I am going to share my screen now and just walk everybody through the presentation. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see it. So the US Africa Trade Desk is a public-private partnership driven through the supports of the Prosper Africa initiative, and obviously backed by USAID. And we work very, very closely with all of the US embassies, as well as working very closely with
Excuse me, Gavin, we still can't see your screen.
Sorry, my apologies. Just do this. The screen visible now?
Yeah, no, we can see your desktop. If you could just put on the presentation. Yeah, there we go. So you can take it to slide mode. And
my apologies. What happens when you start working with multiple screens? So as I mentioned, the US Africa Trade Desk is a public-private partnership with Prosper Africa and the US Africa Trade Desk. And what makes us fundamentally different is that we are a demand-driven model. So we do not deal in any speculative product, nor do we carry any inventory here in the United States. What we do is we work with a significant group of retailers to plug an unmet need on what their demands are. There is a huge focus on product from the African continent into plugging various previous supply chain constraints that were highlighted during COVID, where US consumers started to become very aware of where their products were coming from, because the shelves were actually sitting empty and the shelves were sitting bare. So a little bit about how the context came about. The African Renaissance is, the continent is really redefining itself. It is regarded generally as the world's next biggest growth market. It has the fastest population growth, and 1 in 4 people in the world by 2050 will be from the continent of Africa. Household consumption in Africa is increasing exponentially. We're going to be close, or Africa is going to be close on a $16 trillion economy by 2050 again. And there is a rise in global partnerships and the competition between the traditional role players. And this is where the various AmChams become so critically important into achieving both the growth and sustainability for SMEs, women-owned businesses, entrepreneurial businesses, and helping them get very ready for access to the US markets. rather than just focusing on an easy route to market to China or one of the other Far Eastern countries. Very, very fast urbanization in Africa, but also very fast rural population growth. And where that plays a core element for us is that it gives the US a navigated path to ensuring sustainable and ethical production of agricultural products, which is our primary focus, into the United States. And then in the introduction, you were introduced to the AGOA agreement. The AGOA agreement currently allows about 6,400 products from the continent of Africa to enter the United States duty-free. Some of them do have quotas on it, textiles, for example, but there's currently 39 countries that are eligible to export under AGOA. So a little bit about Prosper Africa, whom we work for. Prosper Africa is a US government presidential level initiative. It was started in 2018. And what it does is kind of groups together the 17 government agencies that are active in the African continent under one umbrella, reporting to a lady by the name of British Robinson out of Washington, D.C., and helps us as a commercial division to be able to leverage the support of the US government and help the AmChams and the members of the various AmChams to expedite the ease of their product to market. So some core fundamentals is obviously looking at increasing trade between Africa and the United States, and that's bilateral trade. So that's not just product coming in from Africa to the US, it's also having a look at taking products from the US back into Africa, boosting investment in key sectors such as infrastructure, energy, agriculture, technology. They all spur economic growth. Supporting job creation is critically important, and fostering a conducive environment, enhancing economic growth, driving sustainable growth, a big focus on supporting entrepreneurship, SME companies, and also innovators. Improving the business climate, and that's working with various African governments and the private sector to improve the business environment, addressing various regulatory barriers, and enhancing transparency, which is of critical importance to doing business here in the United States. Facilitating access to finance. As a company where we started off bootstrapping our business, essentially working from home back in Johannesburg in 2011 to where we are today, we understand the importance of having access to finance and the challenges that we actually faced as a company ourselves. And then promoting bilateral trade agreements. Obviously, the AGOA agreement is under renewal at the moment, but there's also various bilateral trade agreements between some of the East African countries and the United States. Good focus, intensive focus on empowering women and youth-owned businesses, particularly within the agricultural sector. And these are the general objectives that we work towards. So about the trade desk itself, as I mentioned, we are a pioneering platform. We provide a hand up, not a hand out. And a core fundamental to what we do is we want to ensure that we give more than what we actually take. So unlike some of our competitors for African products that send the products east, we want to ensure that whatever we do enhances the livelihoods of the communities from which and in which we work. So some key points about what we do. We have a strategic alliance with Prosper Africa. We have a significant amount of expertise within the US Africa Trade Desk. We have a very deep understanding of what the US market actually needs. We're a demand-driven model, so we fill the demands for US retailers without challenging the domestic market here in the United States, or the domestic supply chain. We have a very, very strong vendor network. We are focused on supply to the affiliated US retailers. And we've got some strategic partnerships with two large brokerage organizations. One is called Empire, the other one is called Damon. And that gives us access to a pool of talent of approximately 16,000 people. Ethics is extremely high on our agenda. Again, mentioning giving more than what we take. And we have a very, very strong focus on empowerment. So addressing the supply chain hurdles that we as a company actually faced, and why it would be important to work with the US Africa Trade Desk. When we started our business off, one of the challenges that we faced was slotting fees and listing fees here in the United States. Just to get a product into a company like Dollar General, for example, will cost you $150,000. A lot of the other regional retailers will charge you anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000 per item to become listed. By working with the trade desk, a lot of the retailers have waived these slotting fees, which is now going to allow you as suppliers from Africa, with the support of the validation from the various chambers of commerce, to be able to have access to these US markets without paying these slotting fees. We also will be able to provide you with an umbrella insurance and recall policy, so you wouldn't need to buy that yourselves. You'll be able to leverage the public liability insurance policy and the recall policy that we as US Africa Trade Desk have. We are a very data-driven business. So we purchase consumer data. We run market analysis, and we help develop the strategy in terms of the route to market. Again, there is no cost to you for this. We have preferential air freight and logistics rates. So we try to de-risk very high volatility in terms of pricing. And we've got some excellent rates, both on air freight and sea freight, which I'll discuss just now. And then we have a very strong PR department that makes customers very aware of the items, because obviously awareness will in turn drive sales. So how the trade desk works from an operational perspective, we have introduced some blockchain technology into a traceability data format. So these days in US retail, sustainability is a given. What has become critically important is validating the actual source of the product. And this is where traceability becomes key. A lot of SMEs and entrepreneurial businesses fear the word blockchain because you don't know how it works and understand it. It's very, very simple within our ecosystem. Once the information is captured the very first time, it flows right throughout the entire system. We then have a validation step, and that validation step doesn't mean that the product is actually already in the container. What that validation step is ensuring that the product that you want to supply is actually retail ready. And if it's not retail ready, how do we assist you in getting it to become retail ready? We have a financial group out of New York called EAS Advisors, who've pulled together various financial resources, whether it be from the Africa Development Bank, JP Morgan Chase, ABSA, Rand Merchant Bank, Truist, which is a domestic bank here in the United States, and obviously Citibank as well. Recently, we've included the talent of a company called Gate, who also work very closely with Prosper Africa. They are trade experts. And what they will do is they'll actually run a product assessment on each of your individual items. And by running a product assessment, we understand what is AGOA eligible, what is not AGOA eligible, and if it's not even retail ready, how do we make it retail ready? And this is a very, very critical and important step, By having the team from Agate working with us, we assess, and I'm going to use an example of a t-shirt, for example. By just changing the content of cotton in a t-shirt by 2 or 3% on the pocket, for example, could actually make a textile item either AGOA eligible or not AGOA eligible. And that's where the expertise, really kicks in. We then have a logistics provider based out of Johannesburg called +0. We have preferential sea freight rates with Maersk. We buy a huge chunk of containers on an annual basis, which really, really gives us good preferential sea freight rates. And we have an excellent contract with IAG Cargo. So if it's perishable product, we can move product out of Africa anywhere where British Airways lands via London to any destination in the United States where British Airways or American Airlines flies to at preferential rates. From a regulatory perspective, we have a team of FDA compliance experts working within our system, as well as USDA compliance experts. So that kind of has a look at checking the boxes when it comes down to labeling requirements, permit requirements, etc. Here in the United States, we've got a great team, TQR Logistics. It's the largest logistics provider here in the US, and they will handle everything from drayage to cross-docking to full truckloads to LTLs. And if it's necessary for us to actually store anything while waiting for an inspection or anything, we have Lineage Logistics, which provides all of the warehousing support. There is 3 ways that your product is going to get into the market. The first is omni-channel. The second is retailers, and that is the focus of our attention at the moment and the focus of today's discussion. And the third is obviously food service companies as well, which is a significant part of the business. This then all flows up into a reporting and compliance tool, which is driven off a very, very strong ERP and CRM system called Acumatica. And what that does is it not only nurtures the customer relationship management part of it, but also allows us to report tools into Prosper Africa, and then the loop is then closed again. So the roadmap to implementation, as I mentioned, you've got 17 US government agencies that are active on the African continent in some shape or form. These all report into Prosper Africa, or they are coordinated by Prosper Africa, who then work with an implementation organization called the Africa Trade Initiative, and that then flows into the US Africa Trade Desk. Role players within the trade desk is you've got Empire, who represent us in 2,720 Kroger stores. On the food service side, you've got, we work with Performance Food Group. So they're delivering to about 300,000 individual restaurants, etc. And we have got Kihi as a preferential distributor. They handle 12,000 customers. They also handle the distribution for the likes of a Whole Foods, for example. And then our principal partner is an organization called Damon. And Damon handles what we classify as Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 retailers. So Tier 1 retailers are retailers that we are actively engaged with currently and that are currently securing product through the trade desk. These include Maya, Albertsons, Fresh Time, Whole Foods, and our Tier 2 retailers are Costco. We're actively engaged with them, Walmart, Dollar General, Sam's Club, and Ahold Delhaize. So as you can see, there is a substantial amount of retailers that are active within our system. We also have Tier 3 retailers, which are retailers that we've entered into an engagement with. We haven't finalized anything as yet. We're a little bit over the demand is higher than what we believe the supply is currently. So we are being very conscious in ensuring that we execute properly. Tier 3 retailers include BJ's, Target, H-E-B, Publix, Ahold Delhaize, Aldi, Southeastern Grocers, and a high-end retailer based in California called Gelson's. The categories in which we work, we currently have 10 categories. We've now added textiles and apparel as an 11th category. But basically within these 11 categories, we capture about 16,500 different products. If you're a nut producer, you would fall under nuts and spices, which falls under category pantry essentials. If you are a flour supplier out of East Africa, you would fall under either cut flowers or arrangements or dried flowers, and that falls under the floral categories. Very similarly, there is a division for alcoholic beverages, meat and seafood, normal beverages, supplements, body care, and obviously fresh produce plays a pivotal role. So you might ask why retailers are working with the Africa Trade Desk. So some of the big core issues is we are now starting to bring diverse product offerings. The tagline currently in the US retail is multicultural flavor profiles. And by working with the Trade Desk and African producers, we fill that unmet need. Competitive advantage, cost efficiencies through aggregation models. So before it would, as an SME, it would be very challenging for you to enter the US market as a standalone supplier. By providing aggregation services, we give you that competitive advantage and also leverage the cost efficiencies as well. Supply chain diversification. Retailers are looking at deleveraging their reliance on product out of China, Vietnam, India, etc. Quality products. Africa produces some really, really high quality products. Products that we are very, very proud of. And as the US Africa Trade Desk, we are honored and privileged to work as representatives. Market responsiveness, we've kind of become the go-to for a lot of the product development. And then a core fundamental is sustainability and ethical sourcing. Benefits to US retailers, continuing my discussion. Cultural relevance. There is a huge African diaspora here in the United States. It's bringing a lot of those flavor profiles and a lot of those products back into the US mainstream retail sector. Compliance and assurance, working together with AmCham, Prosper Africa, ATI, we make sure that your products are compliant ready. Innovative partnerships. We really, really like the idea of working with youth entrepreneurs, women-owned businesses, etc., because that's where the real innovation actually comes from. And we want to make a social impact. As US retailers, there is a strong social impact assessment that is actually done on all of the products that they work with. And by bringing product directly from Africa, directly to the United States, that also then starts to link into following what the consumer trends are and the importance in reducing the carbon footprint on the product that actually enters the United States. But a core carrier as to why there is this new demand here in the United States is the access to new and unique resources. So Africa's agricultural exports are still relatively small, but the value is going, in the last year was $1.5 billion. So, it's when you mention the word $1.5 billion, it sounds like a lot, but it is essentially, I think the latest statistics were less than 2 or 3% of what the US actually imports. Coffee is important, cocoa, palm oil, fresh fruit and vegetables, obviously including nuts, fish and fishery products. They all make up some of the focus here in the United States at the moment. Cashew nuts, as an example. What a lot of people don't realize is that Africa produces 54% of the world's cashew nuts, or sorry, 57% of the world's cashew nuts. Only the US is the largest consumer of cashew nuts in the world, but only 8% of the cashew nuts actually comes directly from Africa to the United States. The rest of those cashew nuts are exported to India, Vietnam, China, where they are processed and then come into the United States. And one of the things that we're looking at doing is leveraging the support of Prosper Africa to run a lot more of the production in Africa, creating jobs and reducing the carbon footprint on getting that product directly to the US. Other items that we focus on, exotic fruits, specialty vegetables, ancient grains, herbal teas and spices, nuts and seeds. I mentioned coffee and cocoa already. Big demand on seafood and seafood items, natural oils, crafted beverages, specialty meats, and then obviously superfoods is becoming a significant trend here in the United States. How do you benefit as an SME or as an African supplier? We're going to be able to provide you guys with market access. We provide trade facilitation. So if you don't want us to be your vendor of record and work as an end-to-end solution, you're welcome to pick and choose absolutely any element within the ATD ecosystem that I showed you previously, and we will just merely facilitate that transaction for you. We provide a lot of business matchmaking. Logistics support is obviously critical. Market intelligence and how to place your product, where to place it, and when to place it is tantamount to developing a unique selling proposition for your item. Obviously, working very closely with Prosper Africa and the Chamber of Commerce today, we enter into networking opportunities. There is financial services that is provided, and that whether that be just advice or even fundraising. So if you are an SME and you're producing a product that is in high demand here in the United States, it helps us work with you and various other agencies within the USAID, ATI, and Prosper Africa network to perhaps find mechanisms in which we can help you scale. And that builds into the capacity building element as well. Promoting and marketing, our risk mitigation is obviously core to making you successful. Sustainability and the social impact that we would like to have in your communities, and that is uplifting, job creation, and just ensuring that there is good social and ethical standards. We are a strong advocate for representing African suppliers here in the US market and driving a lot of access through policy dialogues and various trade negotiations. So there is corporate social investment programs that we get involved with, and these include long-term production plans, financial backing, multifaceted institutional support, both domestically in your country as well as here in the United States, educational initiatives, having a look at agronomy students from the countries in which you're from, bringing them across here to the United States for a study abroad semester, and conversely, taking US students, sending them across to a study abroad semester in your countries to understand the challenges that you are facing firsthand. And then also bringing in some technological advancements and how we can help grow and optimize the agricultural practices. Market intelligence, critically important. You have to make informed decisions, and then also understand where it is best for you to actually place your product. Do you want to go into mainstream retail? Is omnichannel the best way for you to actually get your product to market initially? Helping you build a marketing strategy and where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. And building an entire product journey for yourselves. One of the reasons why, omnichannel has become important is understanding how the US consumer actually shops, and that is driven off market data and market analytics. So if you have a look on the right-hand side of the screen, you will see that fresh produce, freshly prepared foods, fresh seafood, a lot of the fresh products, customers are still shopping in store, and there's very little online shopping on those particular items. But as soon as you start to trend towards the left, you'll have a look at that. A lot of the shelf-stable items, some frozen products, sweets and snacks, body care, etc. There is a very big move towards actually shopping online. So it's a strong focus of what we actually do. With that, I am going to stop sharing and hand back over for any questions.
All right, Gavin, thank you so much for that presentation. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Evelyn Zalrango. I'm the General Manager for the American Chamber of Commerce, Uganda. We will take, the questions have been coming through in the Q&A, so we'll just take the 3 questions that really seem to be speaking the same language as everybody else. And Gavin, I'll ask you to answer those, and I'll just read out the questions for you, and then you can be able to answer those. We'll read all the 3 of them, and then you can answer them as you see fit. The first question is there a cost implication for businesses to access services, the services you just mentioned? And again, to that, they're asking, are they available for startups? So that's question 1. Then the second question, is there a specific definition of tier 1, tier 3, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 in terms of turnovers, for example, for businesses? And then the last question is wood home decor a sector that the desk is considering? So I'll take those 3, Gavin, and then you can answer those. And if there are any other I see that would not be speaking at the same, I'll just add one, and then we'll move on to the next session.
Perfect. Right. So to answer the first question, is there a cost implication? No, there isn't. We, as the US Africa Trade Desk, assess each and every product, and we provide you with the opportunity to either deal directly with a retailer, or in the event you want us to represent your product, excuse me, we will actually take possession of the particular item in your country of origin, and we will move it here to the United States for our own profit and loss. In order to have your products assessed, we go through an 8-step process. And that 8-step process moves an item from what we refer to as a prospect all the way to a shelf. And in some instances, suppliers that are deemed to be retail ready might jump from step 1 to step 8. In other instances, once the assessment on the product has been done, we might give you the advice that the item isn't 100% ready to hit a US retailer's shelf, and then it is deferred to our retail readiness program, or our retail mentorship program. So in conjunction with Prosper Africa, we are also going to be running a series of 7 webinars, which start in 2 weeks' time. There is one a week. And each one of those webinars is focused very specifically on a sector in which we are going to be working. So there is going to be something very dedicated towards women businesses. There is going to be something very dedicated to youth entrepreneurial businesses. So that is really where startups are encouraged to actually have a look at where they want to be in the US market in a year's time, 2 years' time, etc. So we do not exclude anybody. We provide guidance and support in a manner in which we believe we are setting you up for success. To answer the second question in terms of tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 retailers, that doesn't mean that it's a supplier. It actually means that it's actually the retailer that we are working with. And the retailers are divided into those categories based on the level of engagement that we have with them. Focusing on SMEs, when you talk the likes of a Walmart or a Kroger or an Albertsons, which are national retailers here in the United States, we have the ability to work with, if it's a good product and something that they would really like to focus on, but is currently capacity constrained, we have the ability to place that instead of into 2,700 stores, we have the ability to place it into 200 or 300, or maybe even just 50 stores. Work with making that item a success and then helping scale it over a period of time. So this isn't just a project that deals with something here and now. This is a long-term project with a lifespan of at least 10 years. So there is a lot of focus and attention in building a long-term relationship. And then the third question, wood and home decor. Wood products are regulated in terms of USDA. There is a strong need from 1 or 2 of our retailers on home decor, furniture, and items that kind of fit under that category. So yes, it is something that is going to be focused on as well. And again, if there is a recommendation from a Chamber of Commerce that these are particular items that would be of benefit to SMEs, it's something that we will definitely have a look at expediting into the US market.
All right, Gavin, thank you so much for those questions. I know a lot of other questions are coming through, but I would like to inform members that the next session where we're going to have the panel, some of those questions will be answered within the questions that the panel will be able to tackle. So the panel has a lot of more information that Gavin has spoken to. So on that note, I would like to invite Maxwell Okello to take us into the next session.
Thank you very much, Eve. And thank you, Gavin, for what is a very comprehensive and insightful presentation. So I want to very quickly segue into the next segment of our session this afternoon. My name is Maxwell Okello, the CEO of the American Chamber of Commerce here in Kenya. I am delighted to be the moderator for this very important and critical discussion that will shine the spotlight on the potential of SMEs from the region to thrive in the US market. I mean, we all know that the US is a global economic powerhouse that presents vast and lucrative market opportunities for growth and for expansion. However, navigating the complexities of any new market, much less the USA, can be daunting, and more so for small business enterprises who make up the bulk of businesses in our region. So this particular panel is designed to shed light on the key challenges, opportunities, and strategies that entrepreneurs from the region can deploy to access and increase their chances of success in the US market. We will follow the panel discussion with a Q&A, brief Q&A, and I continue to encourage all who have joined to submit their questions as the discussion progresses. And so without much further ado, I want to welcome my panelists. From Kenya, Ms. Chebet Mutai, who's the founder of Waza Wazi. From Uganda, we have Ms. Meg Jake, who's the founder of Jakana Foods. From Ethiopia, we have Ratene Mekonnen, who's the founder CEO of Sinopia Export PLC. From Tanzania, we have Ms. Catherine Shembilu, who's the CEO of Vikapu Bomba. And last, and certainly not least, from Rwanda, Mr. Anthony Hatches, who is the CEO of FF Logistics Group. Kindly turn on your videos and let's get into it. All right. If you could please just spotlight all the speakers so that we can see them. Fantastic. I want to get this going, friends, by just giving you all an opportunity to quickly introduce yourselves. I know we are already running behind schedule, but I want to give each one of you at least a minute to introduce yourselves and your business before we get going. So I'll start off with you, Meg. Kindly go ahead.
Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. My name is Meg Jakwe. I am the Managing Director of Jakana Foods based here in Kampala, Uganda. I am also the President of the American Chamber of Commerce in Uganda. Now, Jakana Foods, we are celebrating our 30th year in business this year, and we are an all-natural food processing business with the majority of our expertise in banana and jackfruit. We are major suppliers in contract manufacturing of dried mango, pineapple, and have expertise in private label branding. Now, one of the things I wanted to touch on was, something I suggest when I'm talking to entrepreneurs about starting a business. In my old real estate days, we used to say, use other people's money. Well, in the food business, we say, use other people's factory. So if you have a product idea that you want to get started with, and you don't have the capital to buy all the equipment, try to find a factory that may have the equipment where they can contract manufacture for you and get your brand started. That's a great way to kick off a business and to grow a brand and have it be ready for you to invest more in it later down the road. So I look forward to sharing any more insights about my experiences here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Meg. Chebet?
Hello, everyone. My name is Chebet Mutai, and I am a manufacturer of leather goods and fashion items from Nairobi. And I am based between Nairobi and Denver, Colorado. Nice to meet you all.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Chebet. Mekonnen?
Thank you. My name is Ratene Fasil. I'm from Ethiopia. My company name is Sinopia Import-Export. I am the founder of the company, and I'm also the chairman of World Trade Center Addis Ababa, which is a part of World Trade Center Association globally. And later on, I'll share my on-hand experience expanding to US market. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Anthony?
Hi, everyone. My name is Anthony Ashe. I'm a board member of Amcham Rwanda. I'm the CEO of FF Logistics and also Tujende Trading, which is a trading company that we've created to help clients either export or import their products into Africa or out in regards to this, the conversation we're going to have on the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anthony. I don't think we have Christine on the call. Sorry, not Christine, but Catherine on the call. So we will proceed. So the first question, which I'll address to all of you. Everybody and their grandfather, myself included, wants to access the US market. And Gavin has done a fantastic job of just outlining the landscape. And this interest speaks to the promise that the market holds, the US market holds. However, it's easier said than done. And I'm glad that we have programs like the US Africa Trade Desk to support. In your experience, what are the biggest challenges that you have had to face or you are facing in exporting your products to the US? And how have you overcome those challenges? I'll invite each of you to just weigh in on this, starting with Chabet. We'll go down the line. Thank you.
So as you've just said, I think finding that route to market is very, I think it's a bit challenging. So I think for at least quite possibly for as long as my business has been around, which has been 13 years, I had been trying to access markets. We did a lot of shows with Trade Hub last year before the program was closed, went for the exhibitions, and then quickly realized that those exhibitions are not really designed for small makers, because often the people coming to those shows, at least in my experience going to Magic sourcing, you'd find that the people coming to buy are expecting to buy mass, kind of like get very aggressive prices, and then they'd always like say, oh, but I can get this in China for much less, which, for as long as the market does not understand maybe the dynamics. For example, our product is not mass-produced, machine-made. We're looking at high-end artisanal goods. That dichotomy was very challenging until maybe 10 years later that, realized, okay, that for me as a maker, I'm a small factory, it would be better to maybe use like platforms like Etsy or and now there's so many others, for example, powered by people, where the audience that is coming to buy is expecting to buy one item, or is expecting to do small batch manufacturing. So for the people who are not mass produced, I think that would be a better using a digital route. We are opening our first US store tomorrow in Denver. So that was, finding finding the audience itself, how do you identify a location, was very difficult. And how I sold for that was I became very good at networking, and I think that's right now my superpower. So learning to meet people, going for events, going to spaces where similar conversations are happening, like right here. I already have learned quite a bit, and identifying states that are friendly to immigrants. That's the other thing. For me, I found Colorado, of all the states, and I'd done a little bit of a circuit. Colorado was very friendly to immigrants, with an active invitation to foreign-owned brands. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that. I'll hand it over to Meg. Meg, what's been your experience?
So now, so I have a little bit of an advantage as an American, but I think it doesn't put me at a huge advantage, except for understanding the food likes and maybe dislikes of the American market. I have honestly found that exporting is really not the difficult part of our business. That whole process is quite straightforward. But what I have found is the challenge, just like the previous speaker said, is finding someone who's willing to take a more unique gourmet boutique type of product, which is what ours is, and not wanting to take it in shipping containers at a time. So finding something like the African Trade Desk to help us find those gourmet buyers is going to be of a huge advantage to us. And that's what has worked for us in the past. We've contract manufactured for private label US brands, which I think is also something that you should really consider. Not just look at putting a retail product on the shelf, but trying to have, for now, someone else's name on your product and still be proud of it.
Fantastic. Mekonnen?
All right, thank you. So the approach we took was we're invited by U.S. Embassy to participate in Select USA event in DC. So that was our major entry point. Before that, we exported to the U.S. for major trading companies. I'm discussing specifically for our coffee division. So we exported to the US markets, but price was not really attractive for us. So after participating on the Select USA event, we selected in which states to locate our company to set up our subsidiary firm. And then what we did was we went to different states' desks and try to understand their incentives for SMEs and closeness to the biggest port in the US. By doing that study, we managed to get the right location, which was in Virginia. And then what we did was we shipped our product, but before we do that, we make sure the regulatory framework what it needs. So we got our FDA certificate before we did our first shipment, and then we try to understand also before our shipment how the coffee roasters and people in coffee business do their business. So what we found out is most of the U.S. coffee roasters, SME side at least, they're not willing to import directly from Ethiopia. They rather want it in warehouse in U.S., the closest port to them, and then buy from that port. So by identifying that, we managed, the infrastructure exists, wonderful. We managed to have a coffee specialized storage in Baltimore, in our case. We store it there, then we start distribution. There were some challenges in the logistics side. There were some delays, like 3 weeks from our planned date of arrival. And you also, I think it is the first shipment, the US customs took 1 month to clear our container with no question asked. But I think it's normal when you do the first shipment. But we hope it's going to get better for the consecutive shipments. So what we did is we got a partner locally in the US who can also market our products and represent our company when we are not there. So that has been a very successful venture so far in our coffee division. I'll be able to answer more questions if there's any more. Thank you.
I think that's really great. Just sharing how you were able to navigate some of the barriers and challenges that you faced. And my heart's out to you yourself. I think Meg also mentioned the same thing, and to you, Chebet. Well, let me bring in Anthony. And Anthony, you are in the logistics space, so you are enabling. Are there challenges as well from your perspective, and how did you manage to resolve those?
Right. So from my side, similar to what Mr. Ratne said and Meg said earlier when she introduced herself about not being scared to use the help of others and still enjoy the process, we teamed up with partners in the US to aid the trade between the smaller countries in East Africa, so like the Rwanda, Burundi, mainly those two, because they don't have the same purchasing power as the likes of Kenya, Uganda, or Ethiopia, and so they would have bigger trading companies help them get their products into the US, and then like what Mr. Ratne said, in America they seem to prefer to buy from a warehouse that already exists in the US, so we have preferred partners across East and West Coast. But now what we've done to help them, because they didn't really have a visual because it was done through other trade companies selling their products, we're now working on developing an application to allow customers to track, basically to handle all their logistics needs through an application, and they can track it from the day they've produced all the way till the end. They'll also be able to see if they want to do like a air consolidation or a sea consolidation. be able to see how much space is left in a container and get that pricing straight off from the application, and help them on the logistics side. So they'll be able to follow their procedure, like I said, from production all the way to delivery. And this seems to be having a good feedback. We've got the airlines, so some airlines supporting us as well for the air side of the consolidation, and the major shipping lines are very interested because of course that helps them fill their boxes.
Okay, that's great. And I'm getting this thread around partnerships, around being able to network and collaborate with, like-minded people who are already doing it, already have some kind of infrastructure that you can leverage to get into the market. And we'll come back to that in a bit. Now, Mekonnen, you touched on regulatory and quality considerations, and I'd like to bring in the rest of the panelists on this. How do you ensure that your products meet the required standards from a regulatory perspective, from a quality perspective? You'll agree with me that this is one of the biggest concerns that small businesses especially face when it comes to taking their products into the US market. Are there some resources that you've had to engage with, or support systems that you found to be very helpful in this process? Would you mind sharing that?
Sure. Through the Select USA event, we managed to meet a couple of companies who can also help us set up our structure or subsidiary in the US. And through that, we managed to access, the information how to get FDA certificate, which is the straightforward process. In US, that's what's really impressive. The psychological makeup we have as an African, or let me say as an Ethiopian, things you cannot find them straightforward in African context. But in the US, what I found very attractive is the trade infrastructure exists, which makes life really easy. So we managed to get our FDA certification easily. And regarding quality, coffee is graded locally in Ethiopia, depending on its origin and cupping score. So we have our own in-house lab, and also we use third-party coffee graders to grade our coffee, so that we'll be exporting the quality that the US market needs. So there's I would say 10 to 20% in US regarding coffee market who are looking for like Q1 grades, quality 1, but then also there's large amount of market segments that need commercial coffee. So we did that, our shipment based on that assumption, and it really worked for us. But in coffee or in agri-commodities, what I found really interesting in the US is there's specialized warehouses who can help you to store your product. And when you sell, it's not that you don't need to transfer or track your products. Actually, there is a possibility, especially in coffee business, you can do in-store transfer, which makes the transaction cost, almost zero. So which makes you also competitive. And then you don't need that much of, you don't need a storekeeper, you don't need a warehouse to rent. So everything, the trade system is actually exists. So I will advise especially people in coffee and agri-commodities to try it out, and then, it's a good system, trade infrastructure that exists there.
All right, thank you for that. Meg, what's your experience with regulation and quality standards?
So I have found the Food Safety Management Act very interesting to deal with. What I learned since I was a wholesaler selling bulk to the US, it really is the requirement of the importer to ensure the food is safe when it goes onto the shelf. So, for example, if I was selling retail packages into the US, I would have to ensure my own food safety. But as a wholesale seller, the importer is required to have all the food safety management processes in place. They have to run the tests. So for all these years, the onus has really been put on the importer, not on to Jacana Foods. So now that is not going to be the case with every country, but just do your homework, do your research when it comes to food. But when you can partner up with a private label brand in the US, it is their responsibility. Now, they will come to you and say, okay, where is your HACCP? Where is your ISO? Where is your whatever it might be, test results? And it's their right to ask you that, and you have to provide what they ask for. And that's, you know, what we've been able to do over the years. When the clients have asked for specific certificates or specific test results, we've just provided it for the shipments that we send for them. So the Food Safety Management Act is quite interesting in that perspective. And also make sure you're registered as a foreign supplier. You have a foreign supplier verification. So, you know, people also have to make sure that we are not just briefcase businesses, but we actually are a real legitimate business. We're not money laundering. You know, we're not following bad practices, but we're actually providing safe food products for the US market.
Okay, that's great. Chebet, does this also apply to your space and your sort of product?
To be honest, honestly, I've not come across that situation, and I think there's less sensitivity around food. Of course, food is a highly sensitive matter. But having said that, from the day we began, quality was like such a core part of our manufacturing, how we made, you know. But when we were starting the whole made in Africa, where Africa be boldly African was not a thing. So to what we were trying to do was to mainstream that African experience in a contemporary way through fashion. And so quality became a part of our DNA from day one. Therefore, how that has translated is just that it's such a part of us that we've not had any, like, let's say, complaints or rejection. So I guess for makers, and because I'm different, I'm from the other panelists, I'm more the small makers, for example, a jewelry maker. I think embedding quality manufacturing in the DNA of the product should be step one before trying to export, because the nightmare consumer protection laws here are serious, and the reverse logistics are almost impossible. So learning to be like a high quality manufacturer, don't try so much to be a big manufacturer, but focus on the small, getting it right, almost one product at a time, and then scaling would be what I would say to makers.
All right, all right. Before I bring in the audience, the Q&A, I'd like to ask one last question of the panel. Successful strategies that you've been able to deploy, or partnerships that have helped you expand your reach and even increase your sales in the US market. Would like you to just give us a bit of a flavor of that. And I think this is a good place to bring in Anthony first, because Anthony, you've talked about partnerships that you've used. And yes, you don't have a product you're selling there, but you're facilitating, you're offering a service, correct? So what are some of the partnerships that you found useful in ensuring that you expand your network?
So on the logistics side, we joined a network of fellow logistics companies that allow us to sell our services as if we were present in the US through the network. And then through that network membership, we have protection on whether or not we get paid by our client, basically, or the client we're representing, whether it be somebody shipping from the US or us shipping there. Our counterpart represents us as ourselves. So that allows, like you said earlier, we have a further reach across the US. So for example, most of the shipments I've handled going to the US have been going to New York or California, but now Southern America, for example, Texas, Miami, are big hubs as well for stuff. And they're starting to get a lot more traction, especially cars. It seems to be cheaper to ship out of there rather than further up, further up on the Eastern Coast. And so having this network supporting us allows us to expand our reach and help customers either get their products there or from there here.
All right. That's useful. Meg, any thoughts on strategies, partnerships?
Well, I think, the biggest strategy for me was becoming an AmCham member. I mean, I think that was just the most critical. If you are not directly linked to other businesses and networks that are tapped into the US market or, providing US services, I don't think you're going to have the credibility that you're going to need to potentially work with an American partner. I have literally been fortunate enough to be one of the only agricultural people in AmCham in Uganda. So anytime anyone is looking for a product or a partnership or an investment in agriculture, I'm the first person they talk to. So I get the added benefit of being able to see if that's a product that I can potentially pursue. And luckily over the years, I've gained almost 10 contracts with American buyers due to having that AmCham credibility behind me. So I definitely encourage people in their respective countries, if you're going to do business with America, please become an AmCham member.
Well, there you have it. Our guests on the call who are not members of AmCham yet, I couldn't have put it any better. Thank you for that, Meg. And it is true, right? It is true. It does give you the credibility, it does open the network to you. And of course, you're able to access content such as the one that the ones that we're discussing today. Chebet, what are some of your successful strategies and partnerships that you've deployed to drive more business in the US?
Thank you. So just as Meg and Anthony said, finding that those connections, networks, finding people that feel the same way about the things that you feel strongly about, leveraging like credibility partners like AmCham, and because I'm in fashion, finding platforms, and now there's so many like powered by people or Fair or Anchor or all of those e-commerce platforms for makers, and I'm going like just what worked for me is just start small, focus on selling one product at a time through e-commerce partners, so that the American consumer gets some sort of like comfort, because I found that was the biggest challenge. Will my product arrive from Nairobi or Ethiopia? So if there's like a recourse for an American consumer, that gives them some comfort that their money is not going to be lost, that their credit card information is safe, or if they spend their money online, and those things that we don't think too much maybe on the continent, but here this is a big thing. Networking, this is really important, being in conversations and joining AmCham, for example, someone who's out there actively trying to solve your problem, or the trade desk, which personally I didn't know about trade desk, but I shall be looking at how do I then become, using channels that exist, someone who already knows where to look. I think that's the big thing. Who knows where to look becomes really critical. So networking.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Mekonnen, your views on this?
Yes. So the way we handle it is we set up our marketing team in Ethiopia. US, the data is available. So we managed to contact our potential buyers and partners by our team in Ethiopia. So we acquired a US phone number, which is from, I think, a company. And then we make phone calls from Ethiopia to access our potential clients, which makes it easy because we have a trained marketing officers here who knows the product very well, where it comes from, and they can also share the story. And for the buyer, finding the buyer. I mean, US is a vast market, so from our warehouse in Baltimore to access the rest of US, it's a big country. So we used our local stuff in Ethiopia to access the US market by making phone calls and by emailing. The data is available. You can acquire it by paying a few $100 to your specific industry. So that's how we've been expanding our market and our reach out. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to get to the questions on the Q&A, and there's an avalanche of questions. We certainly will not be able to go through all these questions, so I will profile a few, and I'm also going to ask my colleague Eve, who's been monitoring this, to just help me get through some of the questions, because I don't want to miss the important ones. So the first question is from Megan Root, who's asking about how does AGOA treat value-add ag-based products? So for example, non-toxic consumer products for home and personal care with farm-to-factory supply chain, local agricultural inputs, but not the food category. And I think Gavin would be best placed to answer these questions since we still have Gavin with us. Gavin, if you could chime in on this particular one. And I think related to that as well, I saw a question on ISO certification. It seemed to have disappeared. I don't see it anymore. Maybe it's been answered. Gavin, if you could weigh in on that particular one.
Actually, I can say, and about the ISO, somebody was asking, is the ISO certificate not required for coffee businesses?
Okay, all right. Gavin, you want to go?
Sure. Sorry, can you just repeat the first question?
So the question is on AGOA and how AGOA treats value-added agriculture-based products.
Sure.
So an example is given here of non-toxic consumer products for home and personal care with farm-to-factory supply chain, but also has local agricultural inputs, but not necessarily falling in a food category.
Sure. So the products that are currently AGOA eligible have certain rules of origin. What AGOA is currently doing is finding a mechanism in which the AFCA agreement can be integrated into ensuring that product from one particular African country can be incorporated in a value-added item in another country and still fall under the required rules of origin. So as a step in the process of validating whether the item is actually going to be eligible under AGOA, that is the validation step that Agate Solutions will be providing within the US-Africa Trade Desk ecosystem.
All right, I think that's clear. Eve, I'd like you to jump in with 2 or so questions.
One of the questions, I think, as that was a bit common, a lot of people are asking, do you need to have a business registered in the US for you to export? I think the panelists can be able to answer that question very briefly, because they've spoken to their experiences. And then the other question was on does a STDA wait. Now it's been mixed with another question. But yeah, maybe they'll be answering that while I'm trying to look. There were like 3 similar to the STDA one. Let me just look for it.
Right. So did you have to read?
So there's no requirement to have an open business in the US to export to the US. If you're in food, you have to have an FDA registered facility in your country. But really everything else is dependent on the importer, whether it's an importer, distributor. They have to be the one that has their own FDA registration. They have to have a UEI, it's called a Unique Entity Identifier. They have to have their tax identification number. They have to have a bond to actually clear your goods that come into the US. So a lot more of this responsibility is on the importer, not the exporter. And I think I saw somebody had a question about who pays for the taxes. There are no import duties into the US if you're an AGOA approved country and you're an AGOA product. So there'll be no import duties, there's no sales tax, there's no VAT, no withholding like we have here in Uganda. So it should be 0 taxes for the client or for you to pay. Now, I also encourage people, I always make sure somebody's got to pay for the shipping. My customers all pay for the shipping. I don't pay for any shipping. So I know that comes up a lot when people are asking me. So try to always negotiate that the buyer is paying for your shipping. Now, if you're a retail product and you're just sending it to a distributor or an importer, then the shipping is on you. But if you're a bulk seller and you're sending it to someone for them to repack it and put in their own brand, then the shipping should be on them.
That's a great insight, Meg. I think even I didn't know that. that you can actually, depends on how you negotiate your contracts with your supplier on the other side or the import on the other side, and that should include shipping costs as well. So that tends to be a barrier for most small businesses. Okay, there's a question here from one of our audience asking about cultural foods from Asia and whether these enter US without stringent measures, while African foods, on the other hand, traditional flours, premixes, etc., need certification. And maybe Meg, you could chime in on this, and I think Gavin as well. What would you say to that? Is this true, or is this just a perception?
No, I think it's a perception.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a perception. Now, I know Gavin is going to say all food is required to, meet food safety standards. And as I said earlier, it's on the importer to be responsible for that. So they have to establish their processes to ensure that any food that they are importing is tested and has a recall. If there's a problem with it, have to have insurance and liability. So if somebody gets sick, things like that. But is it an absolute requirement that a food product leaving Africa has to have a food safety certificate? My quick answer is no, because I don't. And I've been able to sell many US food products because my importer took responsibility of the certification. Now, Gavin, you're going to say something else.
So from the US Africa Trade Desk perspective, we
I think I had a glitch on my network. Please go ahead, Gavin, if you're speaking.
From the US Africa Trade Desk perspective, we offer two services. The first is where we are the vendor of record with the ultimate customer, and that means that we are responsible for the import and the compliance. In order to form part of the US ATD network, we follow a process of validating the source of where that product actually comes from. And that includes, our own requirements for various food safety standards, etc., because it then falls under our public recall insurance policies and the likes. If, however, we just act as a pure facilitator and introduce an AmCham member to a potential buyer, somebody like Walmart, for example, Walmart might choose to deal directly with the supplier. And in that instance, it is Walmart's responsibility, if they are buying on an FOB basis or a DDP basis or something along that line, to issue their own requirements in terms of what is actually required. And that might not necessarily be limited to food safety. It might also be incorporating social and ethical standards and audits as well. So every single retailer or every single consumer, whether it's wholesale, omni-channel, or retail here in the United States, has not just the regulatory standards that are required by law, it also has some of their own standards as well. So that's why it's incredibly important to understand where your product is going to be placed.
Thank you for that. I think we have run out of time, unfortunately. Eve, is there a burning question that you picked out that you want us to tackle before I bring the session?
No, the other question a lot were asking, is Gavin going to be able to share his slides? That was one of the questions. And then pretty much some of them were similar. Others are mainly country based. So I think I will encourage a lot of everybody in their countries to reach out to all the AmChams for some of the questions that are directly connected to the AmChams. How do I join the chamber? How do I join the AmCham? And then the other question about regulations based on the countries. So I would encourage people to reach out to all their AmChams in different regions to be able to get some answers asked. So I think we will leave some information, all of us, on about how to be connected, how they can contact with some of the members that are here.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Eve. So just real quick, 15 seconds, rapid fire, parting shots from the panelists. I'll start off with you, Chebet.
Ooh, 15 seconds.
30 seconds.
Well, I think joining a chamber like AmCham locally will give you all the help you need. Two, a lot of people don't read up on AGOA and they kind of like think it's like some secret code that you need to find special access to. No, just go on the internet and read about AGOA. It's publicly available information and network.
Fantastic. Meg?
I suggest everybody read a book called Nail It, Then Scale It. Chebet, I believe, was the one that mentioned that earlier. Start small, make it work, understand what price point your customers are willing to pay you for what you're offering. And then once you start to build momentum, then you can scale it.
Mekonnen?
Yeah, US is a big market, it's very attractive. Information is out there. It's not the area of telegrams, so we have to move fast and then use this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony?
Yeah, I think like my fellow panelists said, join one of the AmChams in your respective countries, and you don't be scared to reach out. And like Mekonnen just said, the information is there for you to get it and succeed. So yeah, start small and then get there.
Okay, wonderful. Gavin, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, once again, thanks for inviting us to join. I'd just like to encourage everybody to please visit the US Africa Trade Desk website, usatd.org. It will give you quite an amount of information that you actually need. And then to join the network, in the top right-hand corner of the landing page, there's a red button that says Join Our Network. Populate your information into there, and it gets your information into our system and will allow us to start active engagement. We have had a huge flood of activity since the Summer Fancy Food Show, so please be a little bit patient with us in getting back to each and every one. But we are here to help and support. Again, encourage you to work with your local AmChams, and whatever we can do to assist, you can count on our support.
Fantastic. And just to reiterate, the AmChams are here to support you. So do feel free to reach out to any of the AmChams represented here. We'll share our contacts in the chat as we come to a close. And I just want to once again thank all the panelists for your time, for your insights. I think this has been really, really edifying, not just for me, but I think for our audience as well. So with this, I want to quickly, and thank you, Eve. Thank you, Eve, for jumping in and supporting me with the Q&A. I want to hand over to Natnel. Natnel is the Executive Director or the GM of AmCham Ethiopia, to give us his takeaways. Over to you, Natnel.
Thank you, Maxwell. I have the honor and privilege of summarizing the key points that we've discussed on today's forum. But first, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Gavin and the panelists for giving us a very informative session and for sharing their thoughts with us. So just to sum up, I mean, we obviously understand that there is a plethora of information, organizations like the US Trade Desk and Prosper Africa that can really help accelerate and scale the small and medium enterprises on the continent, so much so that the benefits are a two-way street. It's not just the Ethiopian, the African, and the SMEs that are benefiting from this particular arrangement. It's also the US market, and Gavin has done a wonderful job of really expounding on that. And the panelists themselves have obviously, with extensive experience, given us the highlights and the information I believe not a lot of people knew about having trade ties with America. Just to summarize very key points that I thought were beneficial, and I'm quoting Meg here, is to use somebody else's money to start your business. And, you know, the importance of networks and partnerships have been stressed. And I believe everyone here on the forum has taken note of that, you need people in the right places. You need a certain level of tenacity to research and understand the processes of doing business with the United States. So these I found are the key takeaways from this forum. And if my esteemed colleagues do feel like I've missed anything, please feel free to chime in. But I believe this was a very informative forum, and I believe it's very beneficial, especially given the state of affairs of AGOA, its renewal, and the various bilateral agreements that are implemented between different countries on the continent and the United States. So I see it as a very positive platform that we can definitely continue to work on.
We are.
Apologies. With that, I'd like to introduce the Executive Director of AmCham Tanzania to give a few words.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, people listening from United States. My name is Lingai King. I'm the Executive Director for the American Chambers of Commerce in Tanzania. Can you guys hear me? It's quiet.
Yes.
Lingai, we can hear you, but you need to turn on the video. Lingai, you need
yes. Oh, there's my video, so it's on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so as we come to the conclusion of our SME forum today for the U.S. export readiness, I just want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to each of you for your participation and engagement today. Also want to extend many thanks to our remarkable speakers, our knowledge partner, Mr. Gavin. Notwithstanding our industry experts, we've heard from them, Catherine was not here today, but Fasil was here, Shebet, Meg, Anthony, who have shared their invaluable insight on the complexities of exporting, from understanding market dynamics to navigating compliance requirements. The knowledge gained today will serve as a critical foundation as you prepare to take your business globally. I also encourage you to take what you've learned and put it into actions. Remember that export readiness is not just about meeting regulatory requirements, but it's about cultivating a mindset that embraces innovation and adaptability. So I encourage you to use your connections you've made here to collaborate, share resources, and support one another in your journey. Thank you once again for your participation, your questions, and your insights. Thank you to my fellow EDs from Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya, and Ethiopia for putting this SME forum today. And this is just series 1. We're looking forward for series 2, maybe in 3 in the near future to come. For the rest of the members' participation, I wish you all the best. And remember to contact your AmCham country leaders for assistance in exporting the US market. I'm wishing you all the best. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Is
Bye-bye.
is my video on? Oh, shoot.
No, all right. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Finished.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.